Hello, I'm Keith Hilson with the Schmidt Music Trombone Shop, back with another daily practice tip for you. And today I want to talk about intonation on brass instruments, specifically trombone, euphonium, tuba, and I want to talk about one particular intonation issue in general. So, first off, all musical instruments tend to have intonation tendencies. Excluding keyboard instruments, they have a different set of tuning challenges. But for all wind instruments, we tend to have different sets of intonation challenges, and it depends on the instrument category to a large extent. On brass instruments, because of the physics of how we play and how we utilize the overtone system, there are some inherent intonation problems that come into play within the equal temperament that we typically play in Western common practice music. So, very often when we talk about these intonation tendencies, we talk about them in relation to the partial, the shelf that they're on. So, just as a reminder, partials refer to the different overtones that we are able to play on our instrument. So, for example, on trombone, our fundamental B flat, our pedal B flat, would be considered the first partial. And then we just count upward from there. And so on and so on from there. Within all of these different partials, these different shelves, there are certain different intonation tendencies. Some of these tendencies are very subtle. Some of them are quite drastic, and there are certain ones that we have to end up paying attention to more than others because they're more egregious, and we just end up playing notes in these partials more often. Of all of the intonation challenges we have to face, of all the changes we have to make, probably the one we end up running to most often is the sixth partial. On brass instruments, especially low brass instruments, the sixth partial is typically on the sharp side. Well, how do we tell this? Well, one really great way to do this is to listen to the octave. So, for example, we can play our F on the third partial, and then we can play our F on the sixth partial. If I'm keeping my air support correct and making sure I'm not letting the pitch sink down, that sixth partial should sit quite a bit sharp. You'll see people saying anywhere from 5 to 10 cents sharp, or sometimes even more than that. And sometimes we get just used to hearing the sound like that because it is getting in our upper register a little bit. Maybe we don't have the control up there. We're just trying to get the sound out at all. But once we really start listening for it, it's like, oh boy, I can really hear that happening. So how do we adjust for that? Well, on trombone, it's fairly easy. What we're going to do is on all of our notes in the sixth partial, which in particular are going to be F, E natural, E flat, and D. All of these are above the staff, starting on the F second ledger line above the staff. All of these notes, we are just going to adjust slightly flat. I could give you a measurement. We can say somewhere like between like 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch. But do we want to be using the measurement? No, of course not. We want to be using our ears. But using those measurements anywhere between like 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch as a starting point can help us with this. And so what you can do again is listen for those octaves. Really listening for that relationship. Now, on euphonium tuba, that can sometimes be a little bit more challenging. There, at times we're going to have to make a little bit more of an adjustment with our embouchure. There are certain things we can do, for example, with the fourth valve on euphonium and tuba, if you have that, where you might be able to help some of those notes there, but then there are some other response and timbre issues that may result from that as well. But when we're making those adjustments, now that we know for this, how do we work on this? Well, of course, you can pull out your tuner, whether you have a physical tuner, whether you have a tuning app on your phone, your device, whatever it is, and pull that tuner out and really watch for that change there as you're playing on that sixth partial. really looking to trying to figure out, okay, where does my F sit? Where does my E natural sit? And really being aware of that. I am a huge proponent of using drones for this as well, because by using drones, by giving ourselves that fundamental, okay, I want to work on my F, and where that intonation is, put yourself a drone on F. And boy, we're going to be now, we're not just visually training ourselves to see what that looks like, which is important, but just as importantly, we're training our ears to really hear what that relationship is like. Where do I lock that F truly in place here? Now, of course, there are other intonation challenges that we can talk about kind of as we go down the road with these videos, but that sixth partial is going to end up coming into play more so than probably any other partial intonation challenge that you end up running into. So I highly encourage you to start thinking about this, to use your scales. Scales are a wonderful way to work on this. Take your time working through your different scales in that register and start making those changes there. Just start reminding yourself, oh, that's right, I have to lower that pitch a little bit, whether it's with the slide, whether it's the aperture, whether it's a alternate fingering. I have to change that note to make sure I play it in tune. After a while, it just becomes second nature. We don't have to think about it. But how do we create that in the first place? By taking the time to keep reminding ourselves, to develop that habit there. So I hope this is helpful. Keep an eye out for some other intonation videos that we're going to include down the road here as well. Happy practicing, and please keep on making music.